One guy that needs some help, though, in 2025, that's John Mateer. We're all real bullish on him, but he can't do it alone.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So John Mateer was the big transfer portal addition for the Oklahoma Sooners, coming over with Ben Arbuckle, creating the offensive perfection edition, I guess, if you want to say it that way. But, you look over at CBS Sports, they asked 10 biggest questions for spring ball. And one of those was, does Oklahoma have enough around John Mateer for that to make a difference, Jay?
Yeah, that has been the question that's posed and asked like crazy. Is, oh, yeah, sure, you got John Mateer, so you picked up one of the top, at the time, the top player in the transfer portal. And then whenever you started looking at the rest of the pickups, people ask the questions of, okay, did you do enough to put enough help around what, John Mateer is going to have to do? And quite frankly, I do feel like we have the weapons for it. The one thing that I've always seen, John, when it comes to the transfer portal is that one position that isn't as, I guess you could say, that hard to find really good talent, wide receiver. And as long as you get guys and you put them in the right spot, they have the speed, they have the talent, but they just need the guidance, you're typically pretty fine. And so John Mateer has, of course, a plethora of wide receivers joining him in Josiah Martin, Keontez Lewis, going all the way down. You've got Giovanni Gibson. And they've added, to me, a bunch of wide receivers, Isaiah Satania, that have the experience of going out there and getting themselves open and making it happen. Plus, he still also got young guys he can help develop with Michael Hawkins, like a Zion Kearney as well as Ivan Carrion. And I am really excited about Elijah Thomas, the true freshman. Believe me, I watched him at Dakota. I talk about him a lot, and I am not selling you a lemon here. Kid is going to be special. So I think that John Mateer has the weapons he needs. I think the offensive line will be very much improved because they're more veteran. They're actually played a lot of snaps, failed as well as succeeded in a lot. And then he brought back all the veterans that he needed in his running back room. So, John, I think Mateer should be fine. As long as he's out there being the leader that we think he is, should be fine. What about you?
Yeah, man, I think the experience that he brings adds a lot to it. You bring in Ben Arbuckle as offensive coordinator. I think that matters too. We saw how much the relationship between Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Lebby mattered when they came to Oklahoma. Now, Dylan Gabriel had a lot more talent to work with his first and second year at Oklahoma when he's throwing to, Marvin Mims and then Nick Anderson and Jaleel Farouk and things like that. I say talent as in, the star talent.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at what Ben Arbuckle has done as an offensive coordinator, and you combine that with the guys that he's brought in. And I know everybody's made the jokes about, hey, it's FCSU. You can only go get FCS guys. You're only going to Kennesaw State, whatever. But if Ben Arbuckle looks at these guys and thinks that their scheme fits, then who am I to argue with him, right? Now, we'll see if it works. But you also got to include the return of a Deion Burks, who's coming back from injury and hopefully is able to maintain an actually healthy season in 2025. And if that happens, I think we're looking at the breakout that we expected to see from him last year. Because
exactly,
the offense is going to be one that is friendly to quarterbacks and wide receivers and helping them get open. You bring back a running back room that has a lot of experience now, both with Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk and Taylor Tatum and Xavier Robinson. That group of four, they have a lot of snaps under their belt now. And so, listen, it's going to be a wait and see. We're going to have to see how they perform against Michigan, who's going to have one of the better defenses in the country in 2025. But if they go and they win that game and say they put up a 27 spot, I think everybody's going to feel pretty good about where they're going. Even if they win the game 24-17 or 24-20, just go win. But I think it'll give everybody a little bit of confidence, a little bit of assurance that this thing is going to be okay moving forward.
Exactly. And as long as they just got to give us something. I mean, honestly, the Illinois State game is going to tell you about the same, right? If the team comes out there and they just blow it out of the water, then you're like, okay, feel more comfortable now. I can calm my nerves.
I mean, I expect
that's
them
the
to go blow
expectation.
Illinois State out. Like,
I mean, right.
If they don't put up 60 on them, I'll be concerned.
100% agree. And that, to me, is probably the best measuring stick in preparation for the Michigan game, which we think that Michigan is the measure. But if they go up in their first game against Illinois State and the offense looks clunky, yeah, it's going to be a long season. We're all going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to try to tell you all to be patient while at the same time be like, nah, you got problems. But if they go out there, like you said, and they put up a 50 spot, a 60 spot, and the offense is just humming early, honestly, if they put up 40 points in like the first quarter or something ridiculous and then they don't really score, they probably score like maybe one more time after that, I have no complaints. Because then at that point, I'm like, yeah, please slow it down. Go ahead, preserve bodies.
Yeah.
Or just go out there and play all the young guys and see if they can do it. But my expectation, similarly to you, is that Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle will have this team at a point of urgency. They understand the urgency of having to dominate every single game, especially because we're bringing back so much returning production on offense, while also, defense, we don't have the number 3 team in returning production this time. We're around 46, but that's still a pretty high number and a good percentage of returning talent that the defense should, to me, still really carry us throughout the year.
Yeah, and if the defense is carrying you, you're not relying on your offense to have to go score 40 points a game. And that's where I'm at, is that the offense isn't going to have to. Now, if they go and they do it, and you get the defense that you're expecting, you've got a college football playoff, potentially a national title contender. But even if they just go and score 30 points a game, 30 to 34 points a game, and they're averaging that in SEC play, I think you're going to be a really good team. Because the problem that you had in 2024 is your offense, if you take the defensive touchdowns away, your offense only averaged 13 points per game in SEC play. Obviously not going to get it done. They've got to be closer to the 27 to 30 points per game in conference play to be a contender. Because, again, the defense is going to be good enough. And with the turnover you're seeing across the country, or at least across the conference at quarterback, I don't necessarily expect those offenses to be humming. I expect Oklahoma's to be, because that's the expectation at Oklahoma, is you have really, really good offense. But so much of it is going to be that balanced approach in that, hey, we've got a good defense. Let's also make sure we're playing some ball control football in addition to our up-tempo air raid style of play that we want to have on offense as well. So I think the offense is going to be good, but the proof is going to be in the pudding.
Yep.
And I know some of you doomers out there have been waiting 10 minutes for us to say that, but that's really going to be what it is. Like, we can be optimistic about it, but they've got to go perform on the football field. It's not going to matter if you've got potential. You got to go perform at this point.
Agree.
So
agree.
How much is Wes Goodwin going to help Oklahoma and Brent Venables? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.